There's something magnetic about a person who is aligned with their truth. Not loud, not perfect, but grounded, present, unapologetically clear. It's not what they wear. It's not what they say. It's the energy they radiate. We've all felt it before someone walks into the room. And before they even speak, your soul stirs. You feel pulled, drawn in, not because they're trying to get attention, but because they've become attention. And that's the secret most people never learn. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. You've been taught to chase people, to impress, to narrow, to perform, to mold your personality like clay soft in the hands of anyone who shows the slightest interest. But here's the truth you were never told. You don't need to chase aligned people. You need to match them. If one wanted, sure people want to share. You don't need to beg for love. You need to embody it. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most people walk around with chaos vibrating through their veins, wondering why they keep attracting confusion, why every lover feels like a lesson, why every friend turns into a ghost, why every connection ends in pain. But the mirror doesn't lie. You're not attracting what you deserve. You're attracting what you broadcast. If your self-worth is low, your frequency is desperation. If your truth is buried, your signal is static. If your peace is performative, your presence is unstable. Energy is the language of the soul, and the soul doesn't speak words. It speaks resonance, and resonance doesn't lie. When your energy is clean, when your intentions are pure, when your boundaries are firm, when your self-respect is unshakable, the right people find you. Not because you convince them, not because you dazzle them, but because your frequency becomes their home. You want to know how to attract real connection. Start by fixing the signal you're sending out. You can't manifest peace while tolerating chaos. You can't call in loyalty while entertaining disrespect. You can't demand honesty while lying to yourself. People are not stupid. Their souls read your energy before your smile ever lands. That's why some people ghost you without a reason. They felt the dissonance. That's why some lovers disappear after the high wears off. They met your mask, not your essence. And that's why the ones you admire feel out of reach, because you haven't yet become the version of you they would recognize as a mirror. We live in a world obsessed with filters. Filtered photos, filtered thoughts, you and Anna Wanshun, filtered personalities. But souls don't fall for filters. Souls fall for frequency. So if your connections keep breaking, don't fix the people. Fix the vibration. Fix the beliefs that shaped your voice. Fix the wounds that built your walls. Fix the desperation disguised as charm. You don't attract from your hopes. You attract from your habits. The right people aren't searching for perfection. They're searching for presence, clarity, integrity. They want someone who isn't still hiding from themselves. Because if you're hiding from you, you'll hide from them too. Have the courage to sit with your truth. Have the courage to own your flaws without self-pity. Have the courage to speak your needs without fear of rejection. Because the people meant for you, they don't fear your truth. They recognize it. You weren't meant to fit into every room. You weren't born to dilute yourself for temporary belonging. You were designed to resonate with those who remember you on a soul level. And that remembrance doesn't come through pretending. It comes through presence. Through healing, through alignment. Edison didn't attract collaborators by being agreeable. He attracted them by being relentless in pursuit of a vision. Disney didn't create magic by trying to be accepted. He birthed it by believing in the impossible long after others quit. Lincoln didn't unify a broken nation by avoiding conflict. He did it by embodying unshakable conviction when it mattered most. You want to attract the right people? Stop trying to be loved. Start becoming love. Not the romance novel version, but the fierce, divine, raw truth kind of love. The kind that says, I know who I am, I know what I deserve, and I refuse to lower my frequency for fleeting company. That's how you call in your tribe. That's how you find your soulmate. That's how you magnetize partnerships that build, not break. Because alignment doesn't beg. It doesn't rush. It doesn't force. It radiates. It declares. It attracts. Stop looking for love in faces that don't understand your soul. Stop begging for friendship in places that feed off your silence. Stop seeking validation from people who only see your performance. Because real connection isn't earned through performance. It's revealed through presence. And your presence, it becomes powerful the moment you refuse to betray yourself to be accepted. That's when the universe takes notice. That's when your energy shifts. That's when you become a magnet for miracles, synchronicity, and sacred encounters. But it starts inside. Not on the apps, not in the mirror, not in the inbox. It starts in the quiet moments. When you choose peace over chaos, standards over desperation, wholeness over attention, healing over habit, the right people, they feel your evolution, even in silence. They hear the clarity in your boundaries. They respect the depth in your presence. They admire the work in your solitude. Because it's not the loudest voice that changes your life. It's the most aligned one. And when your soul finally stops whispering and starts roaring with truth, the world begins to listen. But don't mistake the silence for absence. Sometimes, the most powerful transformation happens in the void. When the people you used to chase grow quiet, when the attention fades, when you feel unseen, unwanted, unworthy, it's not punishment, it's purification. The universe isn't ignoring you, it's preparing you. Because before the right people arrive, you must first confront the parts of you that kept attracting the wrong ones. You must learn how to sit with emptiness without trying to fill it with noise. You must learn how to be whole, so your relationships are an overflow, not a rescue. This isn't about isolation, it's about calibration. About tuning your frequency until it stops attracting chaos disguised as love, test disguised as opportunity, and pain disguised as passion. We are energetic beings, and energy doesn't lie. The world will not respond to what you say. It will respond to what you vibrate. And if your vibration is built on scarcity, fear, unworthiness, you will keep looping in cycles that reflect those very frequencies. But the moment you shift, the moment you decide you're no longer available for half love, for confused signals, for inconsistency, for friendships that drain, for partnerships that silence, for environments that dilute, the moment you say, I would rather be alone in truth than surrounded in pretense. That's when things change. Because the moment you start choosing you, truly choosing you, the universe rewrites the script. You stop auditioning. You stop performing. You stop shape-shifting to earn your place in rooms. You were never meant to enter. You no longer chase chemistry. You seek compatibility. You no longer romanticize red flags. You honor your intuition. You become the version of yourself that can finally hold what you've always prayed for. Because here's a truth few people are ready to face. If you keep attracting the same wounds in different bodies, it's not because the world is broken. It's because something inside you still believes you deserve it. You heal that belief. You heal the magnet. You don't attract aligned people. By trying harder, you attract them. By becoming aligned yourself, so sit with yourself. Not just once, not just when the loneliness gets loud, but daily, religiously, ruthlessly. What parts of me still feel unworthy of being seen? What part of me still feels I have to earn love? What part of me is performing instead of simply being? Because that's what people feel. Not your words, not your smile, not your curated Instagram story, but your core. And here's the paradox of spiritual magnetism. The less you try to attract, the more magnetic you become, the more rooted you are in your truth, the more clearly you repel the wrong and draw in the right, the more committed you are to your peace, the more evident it is when someone disrupts it, the more whole you become on your own, the more sacred your standards become for who's allowed in, not out of arrogance, but out of reverence. To Wesamashu, you've finally become a sanctuary, and not everyone should have keys to that temple. Look around you. Who's in your life? What do they reflect? Because every person you allow into your inner world is either reinforcing your highest self or enabling your wounds to stay hidden. If your circle is full of half-loves, it's time to check your inner thermostat. If your life is full of people who silence your truth, it's time to examine where you stop speaking. If your days are consumed with proving your worth, it's time to ask why you stopped knowing it. You want to attract the right people? Start by becoming someone who honors their own energy. Honor your sleep. Honor your food. Honor your thoughts. Honor your habits. Honor your values when no one is watching. Because energy doesn't lie, and neither does alignment. That person who respects themselves, you'll recognize them, not because they announce it, but because their life reflects it. That person who can love without losing themselves. You'll feel it. It'll feel calm, centered, eminent, like a familiar song you didn't know you remembered. And that's what the right people bring. Not chaos, not questions, not the urge to prove, but peace. Ifwand. Because when two aligned souls meet, it doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like recognition. Like breath, wunderfunaserm, like coming home. But you only attract that when you become that. And becoming that is a daily decision. A decision to stop shrinking, to stop performing, to stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. A decision to forgive your younger self for the times you abandoned your truth just to feel loved. A decision to stop waiting for someone else to see your light and start becoming so luminous that you can't ignore it. Because in the end, you don't need more people to choose you. You need to finally, fully remind the way and unapologetically choose yourself. And once you do, the world will respond accordingly. Because life doesn't give you what you wish for. It gives you what you're aligned with. The aligned version of you doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't apologize for being too intense. Hey, too deep, too focused, too different. That version of you walks into a room and doesn't shrink to fit it. They expand it, not with noise, but with presence, not with status, but with stillness. Because true magnetism has no need to announce itself. It simply is. And the moment you operate from that energy, the wrong people stop sticking. Because you're no longer a match for manipulation, confusion, or inconsistency. You don't resonate with half effort. You no longer find comfort in dysfunction. You've raised your inner thermostat, and anything below that temperature fades. Let it. Let the ones who only wanted access to the old you walk away when they realize they can't reach the evolved you. Let the ones who needed your silence fall off when you start speaking from truth. Let the ones who only stayed when you played small get uncomfortable when you take up divine space. Because the more you love yourself, the more the world filters out the people who don't. This is the quiet work no one claps for. The nights you cry alone but don't send the text. The mornings you meditate when your phone is begging for dopamine. The boundaries you uphold when your heart wants to bend. The standards you keep when loneliness whispers, maybe just this once. But you know better now. Because every time you betray yourself to keep someone, you teach your soul that it doesn't matter, that your truth can be rented, that your energy can be negotiated, and eventually, you forget who you are. Under the masks you've worn just to feel needed, but not anymore. Not this version of you. This version of you doesn't seek people to complete you. This version of you seeks people who can meet you as equals, as mirrors, as soul-expanding forces who walk beside you, not above or below. This version of you doesn't settle for chemistry alone. They demand compatibility, vision, Padiwan, values, emotional intelligence, reciprocity. Because you understand now, love without alignment is addiction. Friendship without respect is erosion. Success without integrity is poison. And the right people, the truly right ones, they don't need to be convinced to stay. They recognize your worth because they've met their own. They don't see your depth as too much. They see it as home. They don't try to fix your silence or dim your fire. They honor your rhythm. They flow in sync. Because real resonance, it's not built on noise. It's built on knowing that you can sit in stillness together and feel more seen than you ever have in a crowd. Knowing that you can speak your truth and they'll hold space, not shrink away. Knowing that your growth doesn't threaten them. It inspires them. That's what you're calling in now. Not just connection, but alignment. The kind that doesn't drain you, it fills you. The kind that doesn't break you, it builds you. The kind that doesn't confuse you, it clarifies you. But again, that only happens when you are clear. Clarity is the key. You cannot call in what you haven't defined. You cannot attract what you haven't become. So get clear on your values, on your standards, on your vision, on your energy, and then commit to embodying that energy. No matter who enters or exits your life, that's not cold. That's courage. That's self-respect. That's what it means to be magnetic without manipulation. To be powerful without performance. Because the world is not waiting for a louder you, it's waiting for a truer you. And the moment you step into that truth, with no need to be chosen, no urge to be liked, no thirst for attention, but with a full heart and a grounded presence, the game changes, the people change, the opportunities change, the patterns change. Because you change, it's your change. You chose to stop performing and start radiating. You chose to stop chasing and start attracting. You chose to stop begging and start becoming. And in that decision, the universe had no choice but to match your frequency and send you everything your soul has been ready for. And here's what they don't tell you about real alignment. It's not just about getting what you want. It's about becoming who you were meant to be, so you can hold what you were meant to receive. Because desire without readiness is a recipe for heartbreak. Timing without maturity is an invitation for chaos. And blessings without boundaries, they don't last, they crush you. So if you haven't met the right people yet, if the love you seek hasn't arrived, if the tribe you long for still feels distant, if the opportunities keep slipping through your fingers, it's not because you're cursed. It's not because you're forgotten. It's not because you're broken. It's because your soul is still preparing. And preparation doesn't look like what you think it does. It looks like cutting ties with everything that dims your spirit. It looks like releasing the patterns that sabotage your light. It looks like learning how to hold yourself in your darkest hours, so you no longer need to be rescued from your own reflection. Preparation means becoming the mirror of what you want to see. You want honesty? Be ruthlessly honest with yourself. You want loyalty? Be loyal to your own evolution. You want someone who sees you? Then see yourself not through the lens of old wounds, but through the eyes of your future self, the one who remembers your power. Because here's the paradox. You've already met the most important person of your life. You meet them every morning in the mirror. And until you fall in love with that person, not the filtered version, not the masked version, not the curated, edited, feed or people-pleasing version, but the real, radiant version, you will keep attracting people who reflect your avoidance, not your essence. Carl Jung taught us that the shadow doesn't disappear by running from it. It becomes light when we face it, integrate it, love it back into wholeness. And it's the same with your energy. You can't fake alignment. You can't pretend your way to peace. You either are what you say you are, or you're a performance waiting to collapse. But when the mask finally falls, when the performance ends, and all that remains is your breath, your truth, and your peace, that's when the real ones arrive. Because the ones who are meant for you, they're not watching your highlights. They're watching your healing. They're listening for your vibration. And they will only knock when they know you've finally opened the door to your authentic self. Not the self shaped by survival, but the one born for service. Not the self addicted to attention, but the one anchored in intention. Not the self-chasing noise, but the one who found stillness and made peace there. Because that's what the right people require. Not your perfection, but your presence. Not your sacrifice, but your self-honoring. Not your mask, but your mirror. So ask yourself, what is the energy I've been sending out? What are my relationships reflecting back to me? What part of me still believes I have to suffer to be loved? What version of me is still scared of being alone? And then sit with those answers. Don't run. Don't numb. Don't distract. Just listen. Because the soul doesn't scream. It whispers. And right now, it's asking, will you finally love yourself enough to stop entertaining what you've outgrown? Will you finally believe you are worthy of love that doesn't confuse, connection that doesn't deplete, and people who don't need to be convinced? Will you finally remember that you were never meant to beg for alignment? You were meant to become it. Because the version of you that holds sacred space, that speaks truth without fear, that protects their peace, that pours from fullness, that version is magnetic. And the moment you rise into that energy, the people who are meant to walk with you won't hesitate. They'll recognize you, like a song they've heard before, like a home they've never lived in, but somehow already remember. That's how energy works. It's not about reaching for people. It's about becoming the frequency that brings the right people to you. And when they arrive, you'll know. But not because it feels like fire, but because it feels like clarity. Not because it's overwhelming, but because it's unmistakable. So if you want to attract the right people, fix the energy you're sending out and watch as the world begins to echo back exactly who you've become, because the world is always listening, not to your words, but to your wavelength. Your energy is your announcement. It enters the room before you speak. It stays long after you leave. It builds reputation without branding and writes invitations no pen can draft. And when you fix the signal, you fix the story, the one you tell yourself in silence, the one you carry into every interaction, the one that decides whether people feel your truth or feel your wounds still talking. You see, most people walk around as echoes, echoes of their past, echoes of heartbreak, echoes of rejection, of betrayal, of abandonment, of the belief that they are not enough. They don't speak, their pain speaks through them. They don't connect, they attach, they don't love, they grasp. Not because they're bad, but because they're unhealed. And when you're unhealed, you attract those who reflect your fractures, not your future. But when you do the work, the real, unglamorous, private work, you become the signal. You stop being the seeker. You become the sought, because healed people feel different. They don't demand attention, they draw it. They don't manipulate affection, they command respect. They don't fear being alone because they've already made peace with solitude. And that's where it starts. Alone, not lonely, but deeply whole, solid in your boundaries, anchored in your values, gentle with your wounds, and ruthless with your standards. That energy, it's unmistakable, it's rare, it's sacred. And the people you truly want in your life. The loyal ones, the honest ones, sure, the powerful, conscious, emotionally intelligent, self-responsible ones. They're not looking for pretty faces. They're looking for integrated souls. Because real ones don't want performance. They want presence. They want someone who's seen their own shadow and doesn't run from it. Someone who can sit in pain without turning it into a weapon. Someone who's walked through the fire of their own transformation and came out not bitter but brighter. That's what you're becoming. A lighthouse, not a life raft. Because when you rise, you don't rescue people from their storms. You remind them of their own anchor. You mirror their higher self. And that, in itself, is the most powerful invitation they'll ever receive. But you can't get there by skipping steps. You can't fake this frequency. You can't plaster affirmations on top of trauma and expect your soul to hum with clarity. You have to go into the dark, into the pain, into the beliefs you inherited but never questioned. Because energy isn't just about high vibes. It's about true vibes. It's not about smiling through suffering. It's about healing so deeply that the smile becomes real, so authentic that it doesn't just light up a room. It transforms it. That's what you're here for. To become so radically whole that when you speak, the world doesn't just hear you. It remembers something ancient inside itself. That's what the right people will feel. Not a version of you shaped by trends, trauma, or timelines, but the you that's always been there, under the layers, under the masks, under the noise, the you who doesn't force connection, who doesn't fear rejection, who doesn't cling, who doesn't chase, the you who attracts effortlessly, powerfully, naturally, because truth resonates. And when your truth is no longer buried, it becomes a beacon. People will feel it. The ones meant for you will stop scrolling. They'll stop running. They'll stop second guessing because they'll feel what's rare in this world. Someone who's not pretending. Someone who's not afraid of being seen, not just on the outside, but at every level. Emotional, spiritual one, minds, energetic, and that level of depth. That's what creates real intimacy, real friendship, real partnership, real loyalty, because superficial attraction fades, but soul recognition, it transcends time, and that's why this work matters. That's why fixing your energy is the key, not just to success, not just to love, but to everything. It's the foundation of your magnetism, the source of your clarity, the birthplace of your becoming. So if you've been wondering why you haven't attracted the right people, start with this one question. What part of me am I still hiding? And then go meet that part with grace, with compassion, with the fierce intention to bring it home. Because when you become the version of you that no longer rejects yourself. You become unrejectable, not to everyone, but to the ones who matter, and those are the only ones who ever will. And when those people arrive, the ones who see you without explanation, who hear the silence between your words, who stand firm when your old wounds flare, you'll finally understand why the others had to leave. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Every misaligned relationship that broke you, it sharpened your discernment. Every friendship that drained you, it taught you to honor your energy. Every room where your voice went unheard, it trained you to speak louder within. The universe was never delaying your tribe. It was shaping you to be ready for them. Because powerful connection is not a coincidence. It's a consequence. Nasa you wearing man, wish to remember of the inner work, of the clearing, of the courage to choose yourself even when it's uncomfortable. And when you finally arrive at that place, the place where you are no longer performing, no longer pleasing, no longer proving, that's when you become a frequency, not a role, not a brand, but a force. You stop attracting people who want your light but reject your truth. You start calling in the ones who match your depth, your integrity, your mission, and it feels different. It feels calm. It feels steady. It feels like you can breathe fully. No walking on eggshells. No over-explaining. No shrinking your magic to keep someone else comfortable. Because they want your magic. They're fed by your light, not intimidated by it. They don't flinch when your shadow shows they hold space for it. They don't run when the mirror reflects they stay and grow. That's what you deserve. Not because you're perfect, but because you've earned it, you've become it. You've stopped being a sponge for dysfunction and started being a mirror for truth. You've stopped begging for breadcrumbs and started baking the damn bread yourself. You've stopped asking for permission to shine and started owning the sun within you. This is energetic leadership. This is soul-level maturity. This is inner mastery. And now, the only thing left to do is embody it every day, in every interaction, in every decision, not just when it's easy, but when it's lonely, when it's tempting to go back to the familiar. When the echo of old versions of you start calling your name, remember who you are, remember who you've become, and refuse to betray that person for temporary comfort. Because every time you lower your energy to meet someone at a level they refuse to rise from, you abandon your future. And your future, it's filled with people who feel like peace, who sound like purpose, who move like growth, people who honor your frequency because they've done the work to calibrate their own. You don't need to find them. You need to become the you that they'll recognize. So stop scrolling through life hoping for alignment. Stop performing for approval. Stop watering yourself down to fit narratives you've outgrown. You are not here to chase. You are here to resonate, to walk with conviction, to speak from center, to live in such alignment that anything not meant for your highest self can no longer breathe in your presence. Let that be your filter. Let that be your freedom, because when your energy is clean, your life becomes clear. No more guessing who's for you. No more tolerating what drains you. No more doubting what you already know in your gut. And when that clarity becomes your compass, you'll look around and realize the right people have been circling you all along, waiting for you to rise, not to prove, not to hustle, but to remember that you are the signal. You are the mirror. You are the invitation. And the frequency of your future, it's waiting for you to tune in. Not next week, not next year, now. Asha Cerny, so rise, not because someone told you to, but because you've finally outgrown the version of you that kept pretending you weren't already everything you were seeking. You don't need more people. You need to stop sending out the energy that calls in those who can't see you. You don't need more answers. You need to stop asking questions from a place of fear instead of faith. You don't need to beg for what's already yours. You need to become the version of you that knows you were born to receive it. Fix the energy, fix the signal, and watch how the world quietly, powerfully, precisely starts to rearrange itself to match your becoming. Because when you finally learn how to radiate from truth, you'll never have to chase again.